So we did a clutch on this, and now it's time to look at wiring and getting it to go properly. You may have noticed when we came in, it stalled when it was hot and it would not restart. Let's have a look at some issues and see what we find. Work out a plan to fix it. First thing I did, I dug into the glove box, and you'll see there's this wiring here which goes over the switch by the steering wheel, and it's just cut through a hole in the back of this, so you can't remove it. So we've got a little mega squirt in here. Now, if some of you have seen some of my videos, you'll see that I'm a little critical of mega squirt, and the actual ECUs work fine when they're wired correctly, set up correctly, but so often I see what we're about to show you here. And it actually applies to all ECUs. There's lots of guys that make a total mess of these things, and they're just horrid. Not just with mega squirts, with old links, and it's really disappointing because they take a good component and install it poorly, and of course get poor results. It'll happen with good components too if you install them poorly as well. So as you can see, we've got this whole bunch of wires here that seem to run over towards the ignition. Hopefully we've got some light here. Not really. We've got a bunch of wires, twists and tapes. There's a spare earth hanging out here, and a little loom that heads through there. It is not particularly pretty in there. Coming under the bonnet, there's this big wad of wires here, and these green wires, see these ones? They head that way. Under here we've got some standard 250cc injectors, but it actually happens to have a proper supercharger intake manifold under there, which is quite interesting. The bypass valve works. There's quite a big wad of stuff here, and you'll see there's the aftermarket fuel pressure regulator here. As we come along here, it appears that this is a fan relay, possibly a fuse. The fans were not clicking in like they should. It got well over 100. Fan still hadn't clicked in. Jason came and gave some plugs, some wiggles, and there's burnt stuff in the fan circuit. So it's not being run by the ECU. And also when we turn the key on, the fuel pump goes all the time. Again, not controlled by the ECU. The ECU will do it perfectly well. Top tank of the radiator, it's going to explode, so that really needs to be sorted. We have an air temp sensor which is here, and that's a big improvement on a lot, but it's supercharged. It needs to go under the hot stuff. After that thing starts heating up the air, goes under there, yeah, under there, and uh-oh, there's another fuel pressure regulator, the standard one. So that's kind of wrong too. The TPS is wired, which is nice to see. However, going into the ECU, it doesn't work. It's got a fault. So that needs to be addressed as well. I particularly like the standard airbox. Now, I like using the standard airboxes. This one's been modified for the power steering, so you can't take the power steer reservoir lid off with that in place. It's actually got some igniters down here. So the igniters on this one aren't in the mega squirt, they're external igniters. And the actual wiring loom, like through here, through the injectors, looks reasonable, bit of spiral wrap. Considering what we often see, that doesn't look too bad. You know how I hate bolts just pushed into there, and you'll see that I can just turn that. So at some point that was probably going to fire out. Drop all the water, cook it. We've still got these green wires. See, here's the green wires. And if we look down there, there's actually an extra idler. You can just sort of see it, there's an extra idler. which brings the fan belt out over the outside nicely, missing the top radiator pipe. An actual better way to do this is just to weld a fitting back here. So it comes out, cut it, weld it like this, and then it misses the belt completely. Much better, much more reliable. And then it doesn't matter about, they've dropped us to a smaller idler there for the supercharger, where you could run the normal size, but it needed to be smooth because normally it's going over the top and it's got ribs on it, but that can stay fine. But by putting this out here, it clears all this. Right around the outside of the engine bay, down, loops around, past the battery, along the chassis rail to the crank angle sensor. And if you were paying attention to the airbox, it's the water injection airbox. We need to drill some holes in that, blowing in, sitting outside if it's raining. It gets water in it, so that's not ideal. So we've got a bit of sorting in there to do. In this department, we got the aftermarket tacho here, but it's wrong. It's set as a V8 because it's got the 2 distributors. The output is a 4-cylinder, so that's wrong. They couldn't get that one to go. I have managed to get communication with the Mega Squirt, so that was positive. But we do need to give it a good go through. TPS isn't functioning, lots of stuff isn't functioning like it should. Few weird settings in there that I'm unsure of. There doesn't seem to be any warm-up enrichment. The post-start, no, it's the warm-up wizard. The warm-up wizard doesn't seem to be functioning at all. So I need to work on that as well. I'm going to give the customer a call, have a chat, have a workout, come up with a plan to fix this because it isn't nice. And it certainly doesn't make power like it should. But we'll have a chat to him, see what he thinks.